joining me in this discussion. It's a pleasure to have you. And with that, viewers, we have some breaking news coming in. And now U.S. President Donald Trump has in fact arrived in Switzerland for high-level talks in Davos. He is set to meet world leaders on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. Trump has arrived in Davos in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum summit, and those are the visuals of Trump departing his plane as he arrives for the World Economic Forum summit. The visit comes as global leaders are going to discuss economic uncertainty, security challenges, and ongoing geopolitical conflicts. Trump's meetings are expected to focus on trade, global growth, and international security. All right, viewers, the fresh visuals of Trump arriving at Davos in Switzerland to take part in the World Economic Forum. He will in fact be addressing the World Economic Forum in a short while from now. He will also be meeting world leaders as Europe weighs a response to Trump's acquisition threat of Greenland. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has also said that the UK is letting us down by handing over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. And amidst this, U.S. President has now landed in Davos. Earlier in Davos, UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves had said that she would never rule anything out when asked if the UK would impose retaliatory tariffs on the US. Remember, Trump's visit in Europe coming amidst his threat of tariffs on the continent over the question of Greenland. Trump has said that he will add a 10% tariff to goods imported from 8 European countries that oppose his plan to take over Greenland. And in fact, this is also coming as Trump has announced his board of peace for the reconstruction of Gaza, where at least 60 countries have been invited, but France was the first one to decline that invitation, followed by Norway. On Tuesday, French President Macron said that European Union could consider a series of retaliatory options, including a trade bazooka that involves invoking instruments under the European Union's anti-coercion measures. The US presidential plane Air Force One has touched down on the tarmac in Zurich. And first on the day's agenda for President Trump is a reception with business leaders before he makes a speech to the World Economic Forum later. The European Union-US trade deal that's been in the works since July is being it's being suspended, and later today we're expecting a news conference from the chair of European President's International Trade Committee, Bernd Lang, about that. So it's a day that's likely to bring big developments as far as global politics is concerned. Now, with the midterms in US later this year, they could push the president to tone down his use of tariffs as well. And joining me now in this discussion is Ross Feingold, who's a political analyst, and he joins us from Taipei in Taiwan. Ross, thanks very much for joining me in this discussion. A big day. Trump in Switzerland already landed in Davos. He's going to be meeting with the business leaders, of course, before he addresses the World Economic Forum. What do you think is going to be some of the major news points from Trump's visit in Davos?
There's two separate tracks here. One is kind of the overall geopolitics and foreign relations and the U.S. diplomatic relationships with other countries, including most notably countries in Europe, obviously with the Greenland issue being in the news. Of course, the war in Ukraine is ongoing and unresolved as well. But keeping in mind, this is also a meeting about economics and about business and trade, and there are a lot of CEOs attending. So a lot of the focus will also be, of course, on tariffs. Where do we stand? Where are we going to go with U.S. tariffs? And also just generally Trump's policies towards the domestic economy. Obviously, the U.S. economy is the driver of global growth. So I think a lot of CEOs are also trying to understand what Trump's policies are going to be towards a range of domestic economic questions as well. And there's a lot on the agenda in that regard. There's the selection of a new chairman of the Fed that's going to play out over the coming months. There's a lot of discussion recently about things like credit card interest rates. President Trump is very interested in mortgage rates and the housing market as well. So again, I think there's also going to be a lot of focus on domestic economic policy decisions.
Sure. Now, Trump's speech is also to focus on an America First approach, and then he's likely to touch down on Venezuela and Greenland. Do you think he will be received well when he speaks on those issues and receive the cooperation that he is expecting from NATO?
Well, there are going to be critics. We know that. But there are also going to be a lot of countries that are fairly friendly to President Trump. He does have good relationships and support with leaders in different parts of the world, including some in Europe, but also in Central and South America, which has been the focus of so much discussion. The trend at the moment is for leaders in that region to be generally supportive of Trump administration policies, whether that has to do with migration issues and returning illegal immigrants from the United States to the countries from where they came, talking about China's activities in Central and South America. Again, the trend at the moment seems to be for governments in the region to cooperate with U.S. Requests in that regard. And Trump has hosted leaders from Africa. He's had a great relationship with a number of the leaders from the Middle East, not just Netanyahu, but the Persian Gulf countries as well. So it's easy to criticize President Trump, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of that from the mainstream media. But we should also keep in mind that he does get along well with a lot of world leaders as well. And even though there's going to be focus on the Greenland issue for sure, that's not the one and only issue that leaders of other countries want to engage with President Trump about.
All right, Ross, thanks for your assessment. Do stay on with me, as I'm also joined in now by Frederick H. Fleets, who's former U.S. government official and serving since January 2022 as Vice Chairman of the America First Policy Institute in the Center for American Security Department. Frederick, thanks very much for joining me. We've learned how Trump's focus on his speech is going to be on his MAGA approach. What do you think are going to be some of the key talking points in his speech today?
Well, it's going to be a very different Davos summit, which usually is devoted to climate change and fairly liberal global topics. I think that it's going to be dominated by Trump. This is his first Davos summit in his second term. He has a large team with him. I think he'll be talking about his foreign policy and economic accomplishments, especially the Gaza peace deal, how he dealt with Iran, Venezuela, his efforts to end the war in Ukraine. There'll be a lot of discussion about Greenland, but I think the Greenland issue will be moved to some pretty serious negotiations between U.S. and European officials. And I think Trump is going to try to focus on the main security threats facing the U.S. and its allies. And I think those are China and Russia.
All right, Frederick requested to stay on with us. We're now getting the visuals of Trump deboarding Air Force One. He's now landing in Davos, deboarding Air Force One, and Trump on the tarmac there at Zurich Airport. Live visuals are now coming in. All right, Trump Trump made a brief conversation with the officials there, and he's now proceeding to join the World Economic Forum. Remember, viewers, Trump's speech is going to focus on America first. He may also touch on Greenland and Venezuela. Trump in Davos is also going to be discussing the board of peace and hemispheric domination. All right. I'd request Frederick to join me back in the discussion here. Frederick, what do you see Trump speaking on the board of peace? We've already seen how Macron has declined that invitation, followed by Norway. While most countries have accepted, some have also said it's an honor for them to be part of the board of peace. But there are several contentions on that very idea, with some even calling it the mini UN of Donald Trump.
Trump wants the Board of Peace to be effective, and he also wants to push forward this Gaza peace plan, which is moving more slowly than he expected. I thought it would be difficult to move forward. It would take work to get Hamas to stay on board. By adding Russia and China to this board, he's trying to increase the board's legitimacy, to make it harder for certain countries to interfere with or stop this process. But it also was a recognition by the Trump administration that the UN has been extremely unhelpful in solving security issues concerning Israel. It's been terribly anti-Israel during its history. This is an alternative to the very biased anti-Israel United Nations. I think it's a smart move.
All right, sure. Frederick, thanks very much then for joining me in this discussion. Viewers, those are the fresh visuals now that we are bringing you on from Davos in Switzerland, where US President Donald Trump has just arrived, and he's headed to deliver his address there before after meeting the business leaders and World Economic Forum. All right, viewers, those were the visuals of Trump arriving at Davos for the World Economic Forum. We're going to bring you every detail from that event. Do stay tuned to NewsX World for all the latest from the World Economic Forum and from around the world.